for 20 years, I think 25 years, Phil.
Real close.
You've seen a lot of different things. And I'd like to introduce our co-founder of Blue Water Dental Advisors alongside myself, Brandon Wilson. Been in the business planning world for 20 years as well. Neither one of them look as old as they should be. They're looking pretty young and spry. So very glad to have everybody on today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
So we've got also our moderator, Shelby Buck, with us. She's going to be driving this thing. Brandon and I are not technologically very, very well off. So we need help from somebody a little younger to help us with make sure this thing goes well. And for anybody watching the recap or the recorded video, thank you for your time. You will be receiving 1 hour of CE credit for watching. You're going to learn a heck of a lot. We're also going to have our contact information up on the screen at various intervals. So please make sure to write that down and reach out to Brandon and myself or Phil regarding any questions that you have.
I feel like that picture of us would be more realistic if it was us in the woods looking for the golf ball.
Well, they can't see it, but we're actually in the deep rough, so it's pretty much the same.
That's nice. Very generous.
So, Phil, you're owner of Klas Solutions. You've been doing dental practice transitions and coaching and all kinds of different things under the sun for dental practices. Just explain a little bit about you, Klas Solutions, and we'll let you get taken away.
Yeah, I mean, I won't spend a lot of time on it. I mean, we're just basically, I've been in dental. I was on the supply side for many years, did some transitions with another company, and then finally just decided that I wanted to start Klas Solutions for the simple fact of there was a lot of business solutions out there, problems that I ran across in all my years, and wanted to be a help to the dentist and educate. So we have just basically 4 pillars that they run across a lot, and that's the coaching, tax and accounting, transitions, and real estate. So
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess basically what I mean with this webinar today is you asked us me to give you a little bit of insight on having that, or building that dental dream team and so forth. And I think that one of the things that always comes across the most with us as coaches and transition companies is we get calls all the time of, how much do I need to pay? I'm having a hard time getting somebody, such and such left. And so how much do I have to pay? And I always try to tell the doctors when I'm talking to them, you got to realize that the pay is not all the I mean, there's tons of surveys out there, and you guys, this is why I love this webinar with you guys. You do such a really, really good job with it. Is pay is not the deciding factor when they ask for the top, 3. It's always, 4 or 5. What they want is they want a good culture. They want to have an ability to be able to grow in the industry. And then they want to have some sign of appreciation, right? And so that's what we're looking at today is how to give them the incentives, how to give them the culture and stuff to be able to put them in the right spot and make sure that you have somebody that loves to work with you. So I'm going to go to the first slide, and that's basically what's the 3 pillars of a great culture for us is what we look at. And that is first and foremost the idea of having, build your team with core values. It's always been in the industry as long as I know, and I wouldn't say in the dental industry, just in business industry, right? Vision, mission, goal. That's what you always hear. It's what you've had books written about for many, many years. And it wasn't until I brought on a new team and leadership coach, Ryan Hill, that we were going through things. And I said, we're going with the mission. And he said, you really should concentrate on core values. And I go, okay, so what do you mean by that? First time that I've heard of it, but I never really studied it too much. And his thing is like, listen, vision is very important. Core values though, who are you? What is your makeup of you? So that when you go to hire people, when you bring on people, they know exactly who you are, what you're trying to accomplish. And they now have the ability to say, this I totally am on board with this guy. I love what he is trying to build. And so now they have that direct thing with you. So I think that the core values, gigantically huge. Then with that is developing the vision, and having a compelling vision, making sure that that vision is something that everybody agrees with, everybody wants to go after along with you. And it's not one of these things that we see so many times where the doctor will come in with an idea and the team members sit there and go, where did that come from? Right. So that's not a compelling vision, and that's probably not a vision at all. And so then taking that vision, and making it something that is also a part of the team, letting the team have a piece of that, personalizing it for the team members as just as much as it is for you, because we all know dentists can't get there by themselves. They have to have their hygienists, they have to have their assistants, and their office team has to be part of this. And when we coach, one of the things that it's always funny is a dentist will always say, well, can you just come back and fix my hygiene department? It's not running right. And we always have to tell them, it's not just the hygiene department though, because hygiene is connected to the front and the front is connected to the back. And so there's got to be synergy there. And so that vision and having the team members see clearly what's going on, but not only that, the opportunities then they get with that to grow, to stretch, and what impact can they make? That's what they want to see, right? And that's where you guys, when you talk about the incentives, is going to be really important. Is like, okay, we're giving you the opportunity to grow. I'm giving you the opportunity to stretch your abilities, and inside of that, when you do that, and you start making that bigger impact on the practice, there's an incentive there waiting for you. So those are our three pillars. Pillar one, of course, like I said, core values. Making sure, I put in parentheses just a kind of the breakdown of it is one, first, the attraction, right? To have that clear understanding of getting a high quality employee that's going to have the same core values as you made a huge difference for me and my company, even when Ryan brought that in, because it's one of those things where the conversations, the ideas that I bring in, or the ideas that someone brings in, when they all see that it's aiming for the same thing, that attraction is there. And what you're going to get when you have that person come on board. Clarifying the rules of the game teaches us how to win, the promotion of it, promoting, and where do we see where we can make a difference. And then last but not least, it's retention, right? If you have that good culture and that consistency with quality employees that are all on the same page, right? Because everybody's following the same core values or is understanding the same core values, then that culture consistency works. I think back to my mom when she got into dental as a dental assistant, and she was a stay-at-home mom until we got to basically 7th and 8th grade. She got self-taught how to be a dental assistant by her dentist and ended up being there for 33 years. And I think it was, and my mom would probably kill me for this, but I think it was 68, 69 is when she finally decided that she was going to retire. But before that, there was a couple years before that, she was getting tired, and she had to cut back on days. And I said, Mom, why don't you just retire? I mean, come on, 68 years old. But what was her thing that she said? And this is what I want dentists to hear. She said, but I don't want to leave the girls, and I don't want to leave Mary, which was the dentist. We are so close. And that team, I will tell you, was together forever. They never had any problems. And so that's, I think, where that culture consistency, even though they probably didn't do core values, because back in those days, there was no such thing, it kind of meshed on its own, right? And so that's where I think that that's so important. And then, of course, pillar number 2 is the vision. 3 to 5 years out, that's where we want to create that vision. We recommend 3 years, but getting that vision to understand where this practice is going to go. So I think what we need to include in that though is a lot of things, right? Too many times someone says a vision is hey, I want to do sleep study in the next 3 years. And that's it. Okay. But that really doesn't fix the vision problem, I guess, or doesn't help the vision because
Mhm.
what people are going to be involved. How's that going to affect the profit? Did you think about building space? We run across this all the time. Is I want to add a hygienist. I'm busy. I want to add a hygienist. Where are you going to put them? Do you have the building space for it? Do you have the hours for it? So once again, being quick to just include a quick thing doesn't help. Think it out, think the vision out. And also, once again, like when we do our vision and core values, we call it Champion Day. And we get the whole team together. We review with the doctor what his thoughts are or her thoughts are of the vision and core values, but then we get everybody together to build that core values and vision, as a team. Man, does it just make a huge impact when that they can sit there and say, okay, I'm a part of this. But then we're also making sure that that vision is very detailed and it's bringing in these things, right? So what do you think that, you're going to bring in sleep apnea? Had a dentist do this, bring in a sleep apnea, but your assistant would be like my mom who's self-taught. She knows nothing about sleep apnea. So how are you going to train her? Did you think about training her? Did you put that in the vision? And so it goes back to kind of once again, like we were talking about with the core values and just the dream team and making sure that they know that they have a culture, knowing that they're getting taken care of and so forth. So your vision, setting directions, it sets the direction. Visions is so important because once again, like I say, if with the Champion Day that we do, we're taking a bus. We start with point A, right? If we have a clear vision, it's like typing into the GPS point B address, and it's just followed, right? Quickest way to get there. But if you don't have a clear vision, and if you aren't setting up the right parameters, then it's basically you start at set A, you drive around for a long time, and you hope that you get to point B, and you might eventually get there. But in the meantime, you might be losing a bunch of people off the bus and having to make another stop to bring in some more people and so forth. So what it does is with a true vision, it's like I said, it sets the direction, offers a compelling future for the team. It allows them to see what's possible, right? So those who really want to be impacted on the growth and stuff like that, it gives them that opportunity, and it's definitely a powerful attraction. And once again, that retention tool to get things started. And then last but not least, show the team the vision. Once again, like I said, with our Champion Day, it's so important that they all work together in that Champion Day because now everybody gets to be a part of that future, right? And they all get to be a part of sharing their own values, implementing their values. When we do these, and I've sat in them several times when Ryan does them, and it's so fun to watch where they put their values down on a piece of paper. What do you think the core values are of the owner, the dentist, and how much they find, and then how much they also don't realize, right? Like that totally makes sense, but I did not realize that you would have said something like that. And that's, like I said, where it just opens up the door for everybody to start to build that culture, and everybody gets to share with each other. And then once again, the dream team members love to see how their personality will fit inside that vision, and then basically get to be energized by it. And I think that's the biggest thing. Dentists always have there's always a conflict with them in wanting to share, right? Numbers, they don't want to share production numbers, that they don't want to share this, they don't want to share their feelings, and so forth. And it's just such a thing that just stifles the practice. Take time, sit down with them, show them, once again, review it with them, in team meetings and stuff and watch them energize. There's all kinds of stats out there that show that an energized team will outperform, but any goals that are set before them when they have that energy and that ability to want to go after it. Um, and then once again, then it also then gives the team members the clear understanding of how they get to grow, that they now are being told that, wait a minute, I've always wanted to do, or be an ortho assistant, and you want to do ortho. So do I get to take classes on that? And yeah, so you get to take classes. I'm going to send you to classes. And it is now they get to stretch themselves, or whatever the other cases may be when it comes to that. They get to see that. And then they also want to see, which goes back to what this whole webinar is about too, is what kind of impact can they make? And it's not just impact on the practice, it's the impact on the right, or on the patients, I should say, because we run across a lot of times, I would love to do this, but listen, if you have everything in its set place, that it gives the patients now, and you get to see the impact. And when you get those calls from the patients, I love the fact that you did this, and this. It shows, and it starts to make a huge difference. So those are kind of the three personalities, or the three pillars, I should say. Of course, having your dream team, then you also know you're going to have a very dynamic team, and a team that is going to be very motivated, and a team that's going to have some fluidity, or what we say movement. And we all know that when you go into physics, what little physics I know, not much, but movement is definitely going to cause friction, right? So that doesn't mean that that's bad. The friction is then, of course, going to create the heat. But when you get to that heat point, are we going to properly control the heat with the right cultural processes? Or are you going to let the heat become fire? Fire then, of course, we know burns down things. So that's just what is really is the makeup, I guess, of this, and making sure that you have that culture, and making sure that it's set and with the understanding of this. So conflict resolution, right? The conflict resolution is definitely a lot of times a function of the maturity of the owner or the maturity of the dentist, right? We run across dentists, and I know that you guys have too, where the dentist sits there and says, I don't want anything to do with the business aspect, right? So basically what they're saying is I don't have, and if you want to use the word maturity, you can, but I don't want to be involved with that. I want to just come in and do my job, and that's it. And so there's where that first step is. That's why we have, emerging leaders workshops and different things like that, because this is where the owner or the dentist now has to start taking some responsibility a little bit. And it's not that big a deal. It's just understanding it. So conflict's isn't necessarily going to be a bad thing, but what it does, conflict, a lot of times, if you want to call it conflict, it creates, stimulated ideas. It creates the creativity. I mean, it gets people, the juices flowing, right? What if now it's all depends though on how strong are the relationships. And once again, how good is our leader in handling the conflict? So for example, I'll use myself. My leadership team knows that they always tell me that, you are a true entrepreneur, because personality wise, with an entrepreneur, all you think of is his other ideas, and you're thinking of the next project and stuff like that. So, for me, I could tick a lot of people off because I'm constantly coming with ideas. But in the correct conflict resolution, you have my leadership team that is listening, which is the most important. They listen, and then it becomes a situation where it's like, okay, now here's our thoughts. Where I think dentists, a lot of time, when they get maybe an idea, if that person is giving ideas too many times, they start to automatically think that it's just a bad idea, right? Or, oh my gosh, it's another idea. And so you hope the first couple aren't bad ideas, right? Because then they're like, oh, it's just going to be another bad idea. But listening to that, understanding it, and knowing how to handle that allows for it not to become an unhealthy situation. Because if you start to not listen, if you start to handle it the wrong way, or what we would call unhealthy, then a good resolution to conflict should always be a win-win. The person understands that not at this time, right? My leadership tells me a lot of times, hey, Phil, good idea, not at this time. Didn't mean my idea sucked. They said no, but at this time, we don't have the capacity, or we don't have this, right? Same thing with a dentist, making sure that is. Otherwise, when there's conflict one's constantly saying no, or one saying that's a stupid idea, or whatever the case may be, then it becomes a win-lose situation, and it's never gonna amount to anything, right? So it's got to be that idea of win-win, not win-lose. And then learning to manage the conflict. Once again, I think the biggest thing is just leadership skills. Learning read some books, go to some courses, whatever the case may be, but you got to learn some leadership skills. It's not that difficult, but it can take you to a whole nother level in understanding. And I think another one is important is personality profile, and understanding people's personalities and how to deal with them. Because there are certain personalities that I in the disc world am a D, and my biggest difficult person to deal with is a C person. Because I don't want to spend the time of hearing all the rambling. I just give me my answer, right? Because I'll just believe it. But the C person is going to be the one that's going to read there's 1,000 reviews on a product. They're going to read all 1,000. I'm going to look at one good one bad one, and say, oh, most of them are good, buy it. Right? So that's where that's at. So one of the other things is to categorizing the sources of the conflict, right? So there's personal differences. Once again, that's where I just was mentioned with the personality profiles, right? If you understand the personal differences, then you know how to deal with the conflict differently, instead of letting it get to you. Conflicting objectives, there's lack of information. And I think one of the ones that the environmental conflict is a big deal, because this is something I see in the dental industry all the time. A dentist sits there and says, you know what, we're packed. We need more room. And so they went out and they talked to a contractor, they talked to their accountant and everything. And the person they didn't talk to is their team. And next thing you know, a contractor shows up and is starting to take out the lunchroom, refrigerator, table, and everything. And they're starting to tear up the floor. And the team goes, what's going on? Well, we're just so backed up. We are not getting patients in. I'm opening a new room. And so that's the only place I can go is the lunchroom. Well, once again, conflict, right? Way to not bring that up to the team, way not to talk to them. So once again, there's a situation they're not feeling appreciated whatsoever. So allow the team to be able to bring in those ideas. And once again, don't look at it as a conflict, but actually look at it as maybe they have a good resolution. Maybe they would say, we'd be willing to work extended hours just so that we don't have to, go to our cars to have lunch. Give them that opportunity. And then last but not least, the foundational principles of healthy conflict resolution. First of all, priority number one, protect the relationship. As long as we're protecting that relationship, then you're going to have a lifer. Separate the person from the problem. I think that's, once again, that personality situation, making sure that you're focusing on the problem, not the person that brought it. Because if the person that brought it has brought 2 or 3 ideas, once again, and you didn't like the first 2, that doesn't mean the third one isn't a good idea, or it's not a good problem to solve. Listen first, talk second, something that I have to struggle with every day. I love to talk. And I love to, when I sit down with doctors, when I hear something, I'm like, oh, when I give them the answer, and it's like, nope, listen, because they need to come to that, resolution maybe on their own. Pay attention to the other person's interests. I think this is one of the things that's totally gone from dental offices. When I first started in dentistry, 23 and plus years ago, you would have all kinds of offices that would go on vacations, or they would do weekend trips. They would go to Chicago midwinter. The whole team would come and the doctor. None of that happens now anymore. There's a reason for it all the time, but that's something that I think the team building aspect has really been lost. And so once again, explore some options together, and work with the facts, and don't sit there and work off of the gossip. Don't work off of, bad ideas, or don't work off of something that doesn't, even it doesn't fit inside the vision. It doesn't fit inside the core values. And I think that when you do these things here, then you have a good foundation. You build the system that when you work with us at the Champion Day, those systems are built, the protocols are put in place. And now when they see that no matter what conflict, that conflict is handled the same way every single time, everybody knows that there is nothing but the right thing happening in the practice. And so then when it comes to the employee retention, like I said, there's the last thing that is too many times people think of pay. And I think that when you have a healthy, centered practice that's after core values and the vision, incentives are the most important thing, because I think that really is what's the last thing that they need to help them stay where they want to be and stuff. And you guys, that's where you guys excel.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate all the information you shared. This is great stuff. I mean, you're getting to the real touchy-feely pieces that really good cultures stem from, is listening, being able to understand what each person's going through, and making them all part of the vision and the core values of the company. And I think a lot of dentists may not go to leadership academies or, have coaching and things like that they should be taking advantage of, because they went to school to help with oral health and creating excellent smiles and all of that. But one thing they could really benefit from is working with a team like yours, where they can learn the ins and outs of how to create a great culture of vision, core values, get everybody on board with it, make everybody own a piece of it, so they all feel included as part of the growth of the practice.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I'll say is when we have good culture related practices, we never see them fail. We never see them struggling in production or anything. They're always at the top. And I just don't think that doctors understand that as much. There's so many out there that just push and push and push for that production. But when you have a highly motivated team, a high culture atmosphere, that the dollars and what's happening and the ease of being a business owner, always, it's not, some of the time it's always there. It's always an A+, where the rest you struggle. So,
Well, I appreciate that. We're going to get more into the monetary systems of how this can work as well. You've given us really good culture information on how to build that dream team. Let's focus on what it looks like to retain and reward and incentivize that dream team, because life events happen, different opportunities arise, and we want to say these people are concrete to the success of my practice. How do I understand what's important to them and incentivize the growth potential that I know they have to help continue to grow this practice for me, all with looking at the future in mind. Blue Water Dental Advisors is based out of Charleston, South Carolina. Brandon and I started this firm about 2 years ago. Lots of experience in business planning, decided to niche down and work specifically with dentists, which is how we met Phil. In order to get in touch with us, you can email us at info@bluewaterdentaladvisors.com. Our website is simple, bluewaterdentaladvisors.com. Our number is on there, and how to stay in touch with us and engage in some of the great content we have. Find us on LinkedIn under Blue Water Dental Advisors, and also go to Facebook and you can find us there. Introducing again, Brandon Wilson. He's the co-founder of BWDA, dental advisor for a long time. I'm excited to hear what you got for us today, sir.
I figured out what else was a lie in that picture, that golf picture, by the way.
What is that?
I think that's me holding my 3-iron. I can't hit a 3-iron. As a matter of fact, I think I broke it a couple of weeks ago over my knee. Yeah, that's it. Rest in peace, 3-iron. So Phil, We work with Phil. Our job is on the financial side of things. Blue Water Dental Advisors, we help our dental practice owners build a financial plan to grow the value of their practice, protect the value of their practice, and exit on their terms. When we say their terms, that's to sell to who you want, when you want, for what you want, within reason. One of the first things we do in working with any business owner that we work with, especially with a practice owner, is we help them get financially organized. And we use this pretty little diagram here that you can see on the screen. We call it our business owner blueprint, which is a very simplistic way of looking at the 4 to 5 domains that we should be on top of as a business owner. And these 4 to 5 domains all contribute to this financial puzzle that we have to put together. For the purposes of today and what we're talking to the theme of, creating a culture and creating this all-star team, we're going to talk about the blue area, which is growth. This diagram references it as assets, but we call it growth. And any business, we can all agree, grows through people. Whether you're a owner of a widget factory, or whether you're a dental practice owner, or whether you're, fill in the blank, your people are your business. And the way we quantify or subcategorize growth and, from a planning perspective, how do we attack that concern, but also an opportunity? It's not a bad thing. How do we grow this thing through our people? We've got 2 categories of growth in our world. We've got attraction tools and we've got retention tools, and we'll expound on both of those. My goal and what I'm going to tell you in the next couple of minutes is just helping you understand that the solutions for each of those issues are not the same. And I think a lot of business owners and generalities, not just practice owners, not just dentist business owners, they think that you can do things that will do both. And to a certain extent you can, but to really do it right, to really grow the value of that practice, to really, have people that are just loyal as all get out, we've got to attack the 2 separate scenarios, attraction versus retention. So that blue area is what we're going to talk to. Shelby, if you can hear me, fast forward. Yeah, there we go. There's my bus scenario. So we've got to have the right people on the right seats of the bus. I can't think of an industry that's more important than a service industry like dentistry. I mean, you're literally up in their grill, your patient's grill. And if you're not a fit to the culture, if you're not, a person that makes your patients comfortable, if you're not on your A game, your practice is going to fail. You're going to be as good as your weakest link. I think about the scenario, if I've got to go get a part for my truck and I drive up to AutoZone and they've got that part and I go in the store and I buy it. And if the guy at the front counter is a jackleg, that's going to stick out to me that, hey, that guy was, not a nice guy. I might not go back to that AutoZone. But about a month later, I'll probably forget and I'll need something else for the truck and I'll go back to the AutoZone, right? But if I walk into the dentist's office and I lay down in the chair and the hygienist, comes in there smelling like booze from the night before, something crazy, I'm not going back to that dentist's practice. I'm just not going to. I'm going to go research. I'm going to go interview somebody else. So in your industry, it's so imperative that we have the right people and that we understand the differentiators between what are attraction tools versus what are retention tools. And from a financial planning standpoint, we have to understand, what can we do to satisfy both? Shelby, fast forward one more. I'm going to come back to that one if you don't mind. One more. So let's talk about what our typical attraction tools are from a financial planning, from a business planning perspective. And we can just kind of quantify what those might look like. Stephen and I were trying to hire an admin position a couple of years ago, and the job market was tough then. I think it's gotten worse as an employer. It's really tough right now. It's very competitive. It's hard to hire people, but we sat down with scads and scads of guys and gals that were very qualified for our position. And one of the first questions they asked was, what benefits do you have? It wasn't even, do you have benefits? It was, what benefits do you have? It was almost an assumption that we had benefits. At the time, we weren't the business we are now. We were doing some things, but not quite to the scale that we could. I think we may have lost a few opportunities to take people to the next interview because we could not check the box to say, yes, we have a retirement plan, or yes, we're offering health insurance, or at least making these things available. So when we think about an attraction tool from a financial planning perspective, we're thinking about things like benefits. Of course, we've got to have competitive wages, nice things like pay time off, and we've got to be competitive in the marketplace versus our other practices. But we need to be looking at things like, how do we structure eventually a benefits package? Does it include health insurance? Are there ways to take a practice that is doing nothing and kind of vamp up over a number of years and build what we call pseudo benefits, at least checking the box to attract people that may otherwise not come to our organization? Because if it's apples to apples, and we've got this interviewee that likes both folks interviewing them, and they've got the opportunity to jump on this other practice that has a retirement plan, that young gal hygienist straight out of school's parents is telling her, hey, you need a 401k plan. I didn't put enough into retirement. You need that. So we've got to be able to offer these things from an attraction standpoint. It doesn't all happen overnight. Sometimes these things are phased in over time. The main thing here, though, is attraction tools like a 401k. That is not a retention tool. I have never met with anyone that stayed with their employer, that they hated their job, and they said, man, I just can't leave that 401k plan. I just can't do it. It's so good. I've never sat with anybody that said, hey, their short-term disability program is smoking. I'm not going to leave that job, but I hate waking up in the morning. It just does not happen. So we've got to understand that attraction is very important. We want to interview the right people for our culture. A lot of these things that Phil hit on, these are going to organically attract people to your organization. You're going to have people on your team that are going to speak volumes to the public about you as their employer, and things are going to naturally happen. On top of that, from a financial standpoint, we've got to make sure that we're being very, very careful with what we do there. Back up one slide, Shelby, because I do have one more, and then I'm going to let Stephen do his thing. So when we talk a little, and I'm just going to touch on retention real quick. I think this is very, very important for any industry. We've got what we call performance incentives versus true retention incentives, okay? Performance incentives, we could just think about this in the form of a bonus, okay? I go out and I do real well for my employer, and they say, look, you did great. You helped us increase our revenues by X. We're going to give you this piece of the pie. These are not retention tools beyond 12 months. I cannot tell you the number of folks that I've met with or friendships with, people, relationships in my life that stuck with that job until December. They got their bonus, and January 1, they were somewhere else. Bonuses are not a pure retention tool more than 12 months. Now, they can hold somebody there for 12 months. The kind of planning that Phil and I are talking about with our clients and Stephen is we want organization with a vision, that people that want to be there and they want to help that vision come to fruition, and they want to feel part of this team. And Stephen's going to touch on how does the retention from a financial standpoint, how can that come into this equation, and what does it need to look like? And he'll actually give us an example. So touched on attraction. Stephen, I think it's your turn on the retention planning front. That's all I got.
Good job, Brandon. Appreciate you, buddy. I like the truck analogy too. I'm gonna go to Napa now instead of AutoZone.
Don't let them know we're wearing the same shirt either, by the way. Don't stand up too long.
I think it looks good. I'm looking for some class swag soon too. So retention. All right, we've covered attraction. We know what that is. It makes you an eligible employer, someone who's just baseline with all the other firms that are out there that hygienist or new attractive employee could join. Retention is what ties these key folks. Once you've designated them as key, these top talent employees will be tied to our organization for a specified period of time. No one likes to be called retained. So the language you choose in which to talk to these key employees about, you need to tell them you've done a fantastic job in our organization. We see you as key and concrete to the success of our practice. We want to reward and incentivize you above and beyond what we're giving everybody else. So that's what I'm going to touch on today. It's inexpensive for the business owner as well. I'll kind of get into that as well. Most people think cost is a high barrier to entry here, but it's not. And we'll discuss why. Moving on, Shelby. Thank you. So let's talk about retention efficacy. So the first thing you have to create in terms of a retention or reward / incentive strategy is sitting down with that key employee one-on-one, again, recognizing them informally at first, but then giving them something formal that they can take home. The first thing you want to do is have that conversation with that key employee about what is that emotional driver that gets them super excited to come to work every day. Are they thinking about sending their kids to college in 8 years? Are they trying to take their spouse on a nice 25-year anniversary trip to the Himalayas or wherever they want to go? Are they looking to pay off their mortgage 10 years prior to retirement so they can create extra cash flow to then put into retirement? Those are all the things that might be on their minds as employees. As a business owner, you've got two other things on your mind that might be keeping you up at night. The first one is probably, am I going to be able to retain these great people that I have in my organization right now? What's the cost of not keeping them? And the second one is, do I have enough cash flow to keep going? Cash flow is what makes our business breathe. It's the oxygen that allows it to continue to thrive and live. So with both of those two considerations in mind, reward and incentivization strategies make a huge piece of your overall incentive package that you can provide. So sit down with that person, understand what emotionally is customized to them. The second thing is it has to be financially impactful to this person. It doesn't necessarily have to have a big money driver behind it per se, but we want it to be financially impactful, meaning that you can defer a specific amount of money to give to this person so they can accomplish XYZ goals that they've told you is super important to you. So that third one there is deferring that specific payout to this person for an amount of time that you deem appropriate, usually tied to growth incentives. So you have to characterize the different points that this employee must hit in order to achieve your contributions to their goals. And the fourth thing is it has to be simple. We often use an analogy of using the spouse test. If this individual in your practice understands the simplicity of this plan and they go home and talk to their spouse, partner, family members, whoever, and they say, guess what? I had this great conversation with Dr. Smith today. They found me super important to this practice. They're willing to give me X amount of dollars or X amount of benefit if I'm with them for 7 years. So if that spouse can understand the plan just as well as the employee, you can bet that if that spouse ever starts to think about, if the employee ever starts to think about leaving that practice, that spouse is going to be extremely angry and says, hey, our kids are going to college in 7 years. You need to stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about your family and the practice, right? So those are the four things that allow to have really good efficacy and efficiency around your retention strategy for your employee. The second most important thing around retention is understanding that as a business owner, there is a 100% guarantee that you will leave your practice one day. And it's either going to be toes up or toes down, as Brandon likes to say. So you're either going to be alive for it or you're not. But the 100% guarantee is there because people either retire out of this business or they sell this business or they just shut down the doors one day and then nobody can get back in. And so those are the three different doors of exit. But retention is super important for our business owners today and especially at practice sale. The first reason that it's important to the exit of the practice owner is it creates a market for a sale to, we call them insiders jargon wise, but it's to any associates or family members in the practice who are dentists as well. So they're very keen on keeping that same continuity. And they want to make sure that those employees who know the culture, the vision, the core values are still present so that practice keeps humming along. The second one is it increases salability and it also increases the purchase price for that seller going to sell it off to a buyer to a third party. A third party could be a dental service organization, a DSO. Those are getting monumentally popular right now. Or another successful dental practice in your town or state that wants to purchase your practice for market share and that cash flow. The third is it allows an owner to keep the business and to also convert to passive ownership should they wish. So if they want to sell portions of their practice to associate dentists and maybe sell 60% off, but keep 40% or even less than 25%, maybe be a silent partner in the practice and continue to generate revenues. This keeps that same continuity in place so they can pretty much guarantee they're going to receive the same type of cash flow that they're used to, and they can bank on that. And the fourth thing is it maintains the value in case of an unexpected exit due to the three black swans, we say, whether it's death, disability, loss of license, or lawsuit. Those are the four things that we can't really control in most cases. So we want to maintain that value in case we have to get out quickly. We're able to do so because of the continuity planning that you put in place. So I mentioned this before. I want to just reiterate, but it's completely deferred. Brandon mentioned that attraction tools like bonuses and benefits don't keep these employees on longer than 12 months in most cases. That's I believe that's from Gallup.com. So you can check us on that if you want. But it's got to be completely deferred out for a specific amount of time. A lot of times it can relate around the same time frame of when you'd like to exit. If your exit strategy is supposed to be completely finished in 10 years, you can start that payout structure in year 8, and they're on for 3 more years through the transition to the new owner. The second is it addresses those milestones. I want to give you an example. So we've got a doctor, Dr. Smith in Mayberry, USA. If you've ever seen our 3 Doors of Exit CE video, this is the same scenario. But she's got a dental hygienist named Stephanie. She's 35 years old. She's got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and she's anxious about sending her kids to college. So Dr. Smith realizes the importance that Stephanie has in the growth of her practice and the continuity of her patient base. So she wants to reward above and beyond in a what we call a discriminatory way, but a good discriminatory way, that she wants to give a specific benefit to Stephanie so that she's able to stay on for a period of time, selfishly for the business owner's benefit, but also for the employee's benefit. She's willing to give Stephanie 8 years to ramp up this benefit with continual growth incentives that she's willing to go over with Stephanie each year. Say, we're going to award you this 10% bonus every year that's going into a deferred account. The structure of the account is not important right now, but in 8 years, we're going to give your first child, when they turn 19, $20,000 a year for college. So what a weight has been lifted off Stephanie's shoulders, thinking that she's got this excellent benefit that she can send both of her kids to school. And by the way, you can defer these payments out in tranches as well. So it's able to pay for one kid or both kids should you decide to do that. Now, that is a simple plan. Stephanie's going to talk to her husband or partner about, what that looks like for them financially, which means they can allocate resources into other areas of their goals or retirement planning should they wish to do that. So there are 3 promises that we want to provide not only the employee as a business owner. The first is, if you work for the amount of time that we've talked about in this formal agreement, you will. The second thing is, if you get sick along the way and you can't work, we still promise to fund this benefit and pay it out to you or your spouse. The third is, if you pass away and unfortunately you're not here to provide that income for your family, whenever it is that you pass, we will pass along that benefit to your family as well. So it's got all kinds of different safeguards against the 3 black swan events that could happen. An example here is the business, the top portion is giving $30,000 a year for 8 years for college for Stephanie's kids. And then the key employee and the family receives that benefit once they've hit those incentives. So if you have any questions, I think Phil might have been having a coughing fit. I'm not sure. But if you have any questions for Phil and his practice, coaching, and all the things that he does around culture, core values, and making sure you create that dream team with the touchy-feely stuff that's necessary, reach out to Phil at klassolutions.com. If you're interested in getting super financially organized, growing the practice, protecting that greatest asset, there he is. Hey, Phil.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. And if you're interested in knowing how you can grow the practice, protect the practice, and eventually exit the practice, we get those folks ready to exit. We don't broker. That's what we use Phil for, the transition side. You can reach out to us at info@bluewaterdentaladvisors.com. We're happy to answer any questions that you got. I'm not sure if we have any questions from the viewers currently, but we're always here to help. You can view this later on our YouTube page. Reach out to us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Call our number, 410-8112-843 area code. Happy to chat with y'all. Thanks for calling, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Good to see you, brother.
Yep.